Today on episode 39 of the Play Guitar Podcast, I take the first step with you towards playing advanced guitar chords. We'll leave open barre chords in the dust and start playing something special. Also have listener feedback, so stay tuned. Welcome to episode 39 of the Play Guitar Podcast. I'm Lee, and this is the podcast that's determined to make you a better guitar player. No matter if you're just starting out, you've been playing for years, this is the show that will help you become the guitarist that you always wanted to be. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today on today's episode. It's titled Start Playing Advanced Guitar Chords. And I'm very happy to do this because this is a special YouTube edition of the podcast, because usually I like to try to record them both at the same time, but technology wasn't working my way. So this one is just for video today. So let's get started with it. How do you do it? How do you move into playing all of those cool sounding chords? You know the ones. You'll hear them. They sound something different, something special. They don't have the familiar open chord sound, and they don't have that barre chord sound that you're used to. There's something else going on with them. It could be the way they're voiced or some extra color tones that decorate the sound. A lot of players would love to have those sounds in their bag of tricks, but they have no idea how to go about learning them. Well, today we're going to take a first step together. We're going to boldly go past what we've struggled so hard to learn for so long, and that's barre chords. We're moving past them. And that's right. Where do we go from here? Not only are we going to learn some new chord shapes, we're going to introduce a new way of thinking about playing chords. And that's by actually understanding what the notes in the chords are and how to arrange them. You might say, hold on there. I'm used to memorizing chord shapes. And that's fine. That's not a problem at all. It's great. It got you this far. But to move past this, to continue down the road, we're going to need a little bit more. We're going to use a little understanding to get a lot of results. And it's going to be well worth your while. We're going to start off with a technique that takes a lot of the overwhelm of the guitar out of the picture. The guitar, by its nature, it's a bit overwhelming. It's got 6 strings. The notes overlap, from string to string over there at the 5th fret. And You've got an instrument that has so many choices of ways to play even a simple chord. But as you're going to see today, if we limit some of these choices, so we can really focus on the fundamentals and achieve some great results, even from a first step towards this, like today. This is going to be fun. It's going to be great. I've been excited about this all day. I've been wanting to get this recorded, and we're really going to help a lot of players start moving forward with the guitar. It's going to be super valuable, I think. So, but before we get started today, I want to remind you about some of my free content I have available for you. First, I have my free video lesson called Get Your Blues Soloing Under Control. It's the 6 steps I found that will give you the right foundations for playing killer blues solos in no time at all. It's a lesson I put together after getting together with some of the listeners, figuring out what could help them the most. I know it can really help take your soloing in a new direction. I also have my free practice space checklist from the other week, setting up your practice space in a comfortable and effective way. It'll really help speed up your success with the guitar. And this checklist is not just the essentials of a super effective place to practice, but it's also got some extra ideas as well. You can get both of these by going to freeblueslesson.com. You sign up there, and when you get to the video page, you'll also have the checklist right there at the top. So, and not only that, you get news about my podcast, videos, and other cool stuff sent directly to your inbox. So go ahead, sign up for that today. That's over at freeblueslesson.com. So thanks again for joining me today. We're going to go ahead and get started with the main topic. Start playing advanced guitar chords. Learning chords is one of the first things you do on the guitar. You master your open position chords and a whole new world opens up to you. You can play something now that resembles a lot of the songs that you've heard before. But at some point, that's not enough. As you get used to playing these chords and you learn other songs, your ear starts to wander. You soon realize that that awesome knowledge that you have, it's not going to give you everything you need to play all the songs that you want. You can hear there's something else, some other cool sounding chords that are out of your reach. These chords are most likely bar chords. That would be the next step. Most popular guitar music's based on either the open position chords or the bar chords. So the logical progression is to learn bar chords as fast as you can. And man, it's a struggle at first, especially if you're playing acoustic guitar. It's tough. It's like learning to play all over again. Your fingers hurt. It takes some time to get them to sound right, but it's doable. And if you put in the time, bar chords become part of your own sound. Then, once you're confident with the bar chords, you're off to the races. With the combination of open position and bar chords, you can play the basic parts to pretty much any popular song. It's awesome. But then it happens again. With your playing getting better and your ear getting better, you start to notice something again. You start to hear more new chords that sound cool to you. Chords that aren't open position, or they're not those blocked out bar chords that have given you so much up to this point. You might think to yourself, well, I've moved on past open chords into the wide world of bar chords. I thought that'd be all I need. But now your ear's telling you something completely different. You're going to think, well, what are those interesting sounding chords? I've come this far. I've accomplished a lot. I'm starting to realize that I've done what I thought was the impossible before. I've learned things I never thought I'd be able to learn. There's no reason I can't do it again. So you know that the things that you once thought were downright like they were like magical. They're now just a common part of your everyday playing. Just like everything else that you thought you'd never be able to do on the guitar, there is a way. You just have to find that narrow path to making this new skill your own. Well, there's a way to learn these new awesome chords. And once you understand it, you are on your way. Just like when you learn bar chords. And if you've been building your strong base of fundamentals along the way, you have the tools you need already to start down this path. So now we're going to go through the gateway to the sophisticated chords. How do you do it? How do you move from the bar chords over to these chords? How do you take the guitar theory that you've learned and apply it, use it to your advantage? How can you create the new chord voicings on the guitar yourself rather than just memorizing endlessly these chord shapes that you find? It's going to take a new way of thinking. We're going to approach chords in a different way, a way by building the chords ourselves instead of just memorizing the shapes and trust whoever that put them out there knew what they were doing. So let's take this knowledge that we already have and put it into practice. So here's my experience. I've talked about this before in one of my podcasts. I've got enough podcasts now that I can't remember exactly which one it was, but I remember bringing it to you. It was about when I moved from bar chords and got into different voicings of chords on the guitar. I was in high school. I was in the jazz band. We would get these huge charts for whatever song we were playing. It would have a ton of chords, and there was a lot of them I didn't know how to play. So I do my best with the bar chords that I knew. I knew they didn't sound quite right, but at least they didn't stick out. I could kind of be in the background. So I remember being a little frustrated, and I happened to look at what the keyboard player was playing, and I got shocked. She was playing very few notes, not like all these huge chords that I was playing, and it sounded great. It was right for the part, and it cut through the mix of instruments. I was playing my big 6-note chords, and they honestly didn't sound that great. They sounded muddy. They would get lost in the mix. So I tried playing smaller chords, and it worked. I stopped trying to play the biggest chord I could play and just focused on a few notes of that chord. Things started to sound better. Well, what I'm going to bring to you today is that next step I took, where I was using a few of the notes of the bar chords that I knew, but getting better results. I needed a way to be able to relate this to the whole fretboard, to be able to create chords in different places on the guitar that fit the song. And this is the first step that I took in this direction. This is chords only using 4 strings. The purpose of this podcast isn't that you'll be awesome at this like right away. Far from it. My purpose today is to bring you a mind shift, to have you think differently. And this is one that I think a lot of players would like to have. They just don't know what to do to get there. So you might think, how do I play these cool chords and voicings that I'm hearing and sound confident when I do it? Well, the path isn't to add a lot of extra things to what we already do. The path is actually to take some stuff away. We're going to limit things a bit. Because the guitar has 6 strings, a lot of students, like they said before, they assume that you got to use them all, or you got to use as many strings possible. So here's the first mind shift. You don't. In fact, a lot of times using a smaller amount of notes can work to your advantage. Today, we're going to limit ourselves to just 4 strings of the guitar, and we're going to limit us to chords that only have 4 different notes. I know a lot of people who play like ukulele and other 4-string instruments, and they like that. They like the limitation of just having the 4 strings. They say it feels liberating. So for us, that means that each string that we're going to play today will get one of the notes of the chord. Easy. It takes the doubled notes out of the picture. 1 chord tone for 1 string, and that's it. When we take the doubling out of the chord notes, it starts to become streamlined and simple. We're also going to do this in different places on the guitar, in different positions. And then we will use the notes that are available to us in that position to our advantage. There are lots of ways of labeling this stuff. You hear it in different, some people call them inversions, some people call them positions, or like drop 3, drop, we're going to avoid all of that. That kind of leads you down the road of memorizing things. And that's not the point of this at all. The key to this is to start thinking. I know you're thinking, oh no, not thinking. Don't ask me to think. It's okay. It's just some thinking up front. On down the road, when you're used to it, it gets a lot easier. What we want to start thinking about is what notes are available to us where our hand is on the guitar on those 4 strings with the limitations we've set. The point of this is to use our knowledge of how chords are constructed and apply that to the guitar in a certain area on a certain set of strings. And it's easier than you think. So we're going to use just the 4 strings. Well, which ones are we going to use? Let's start thinking in string sets. There's a few common combinations of strings to use. The most common one you find uses the E, skips the A, then uses the D, G, and B string. Okay, we can turn this up a little bit. You can think of it as use the low string, skip 1, and then the next 3. This is particularly good sounding way to create chords. The space between the note on the low string and the D, G, and B strings, it gives a very full sound, especially if you're creating chord melodies. You can also use the same idea, but off of the A string. That would be the A string, and then the G, B, and E string. You can think of it as the second low string, skip 1, and then the next 3. It's got the same kind of bass note with 3 upper strings together. It can be a pretty full sound. These 2 sets of strings are called drop 3 voicings, but that's just to let you know. You don't have to worry about that. That's not what we're going for here. There are a lot of other combinations of strings you can use as well. The most common being the top 4 strings, the D, G, B, and E, or the middle 4, that's the A, D, G, and B, or the lowest 4, E, A, D, G. You can do them in all sorts of different combinations. To get started learning this, though, we're just going to start with 1 set. For the examples today, we're going to concentrate on the first one I talked about, which is using the low E, and then the D, G, and B strings. All right, what chords are we going to use? For this exercise, we're going to use chords that use 4 different notes. If you remember from episode 5, that's called Really Understanding Chords, and I also had a blog post that went with it that's called How to Build Chords and Arpeggios. There's 2 basic types of chords. and they're based on the number of notes in the chords. Those are the regular major and minor chords. Those are called triads. They use 3 notes. There's 3 notes in those chords. And the other basic type of chord we commonly use are 7th chords. And 7th chords use 4 notes. So how do we know what notes to use to build those chords? If you remember, it all starts with the major scale. We give each note in the major scale a number: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 8th being the octave where it starts over again. So for an example, a C major chord is the notes C, E, and G. Those are the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th notes of that C major scale. And we started out with the 1st note, and we skipped every other note to complete the chord. Those 3 notes make up the C major triad. But to make that major triad a minor one, all we have to do is take the note from the 3rd, the 1st note that we skipped to, and lower that by 1 fret, by a half step. And that would give us C, E flat, and G. That's a C minor triad. So here's the difference. Major. Here, I'll do it here. And lower that E to E flat. There you go, right there. There's our minor triad. Okay, but today we're going to be working with 7th chords, and those are 4-note chords. How do we get those? Well, to create a 7th chord, we need to skip one more time. We need the 1st, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th notes from the major scale. That last added note, the 7th, is the reason why we call these chords 7th notes in the first place. So in the key of C, that would be C, E, G, and now B. Those notes together create a C major 7th chord. Many different types of 7th chords. There's major 7th, minor 7th, dominant 7th, diminished 7th, minor 7th flat 5, which is half diminished, major minor 7th. There's a lot of them. That's just to name a few of them. For today, we're just going to focus on the 3 most basic 7th chords, which is the major 7th, minor 7th, and dominant 7th. Okay, let's build these chords. Over the years, if I asked a student, can you build me a major 7th chord of some sort, some fret, usually they look at me funny, or they'd say, yeah, right, I'll build a chord, sure, those kind of things. Building chords goes against what we're used to. Chord shapes are usually provided for us. Someone else has done the work. We just have to do the memorizing. But letting somebody else know, or letting somebody else do the work, we're giving up a whole lot. We're giving up a great deal. The process of understanding the notes in the desired chord and then finding new and interesting ways of putting them together, voicing them, that's gold. That's the doorway to your next step as a musician. Your next step in the Awesome Guitar Players Club. And it's not difficult at all when you've got the right information. With the limitations that we're imposing, the four strings, things become a lot more manageable. So the limitation of only using those 4 strings and making sure that each string gets one of those 4 chord tones, it blocks out a ton of distractions and becomes super focused. It becomes a game where you get to find which one of the 4 chord notes that you can reach on the strings you're using close to where your hand is. That's it. It's just what chord note can I get where my hand is. So let's do it. I'm going to go ahead and switch the camera here to my other view. Let's see. Let's get it looking just right here. Okay, there we go. All right. So we're going to build some chords, the major 7th, the minor 7th, and the dominant 7th. And we're going to do these all in G. We're going to make them all G chords of some sort. G major 7th, G minor 7th, and G dominant 7th. Let's start with G major 7th. The first step is, what are the notes that we need to make this chord up? We have the notes in the key of G major are G, A, B, C, D, E, and F sharp. How did I get those notes? I used that major scale formula, the whole, half, whole, half. Whole step, half step, whole step, half step. So G, whole step is A, another whole step is B, half step is C, whole step is D, whole step is E, whole step is F sharp, and a half step goes back to G. So there's our notes of the G major scale. So what we're going to do is start skipping notes like we did before. We're going to need the G, skip 1 to the B, skip 1 to the D, and then skip 1 to the F sharp. G, B, D, F sharp. Those are the notes we're looking for. They're the G major 7th chord notes, and they come straight from the major scale. You don't need to change anything. So what we do from here is we're first going to find that G on the low string. Okay? It's on the 3rd fret. Let me turn this off here. Okay, so our G's on the 3rd fret on the low E string. We'll skip a string, and then on the D string we have an F sharp that's on the 4th fret. Then on the G string we have a B on the 4th fret, and then on the B string we have that D, the last note that we need, on the 3rd fret. So we've got G, F sharp, B, and D. All 4 of the notes we need. That's a major 7th chord. Not playing the A string, not playing the high E string. Okay? There it is. It's right under our fingers at the 3rd fret. Super easy. I just took the 4 notes we needed, put them on the 4 strings that we chose. Let's try this same chord again, but let's start it off higher. Let's start it off up where the B note is. So we're going to find the B on the low E string. It's at the 7th fret. And now that we have the B, let's find the rest of the notes. We need a G, a D, and an F sharp to make this chord. So we get the B on the low E string, 7th fret. D string, we have a G at the 5th fret. On the G string, we have a D, the 7th fret. And on the B string, we have F sharp on the 7th fret. Sounds nice. Here's the first one, second one. There it is. It's very easy to play. So let's move on from there. Let's build from the 5th. The 5th of the scale is the D. And that's up on the 10th fret. So that's going to be our low note for this voicing. Then on the D string, we have a B on the 9th fret. On the G string, we have F sharp on the 11th fret. And then on the B string, we have a G on the 8th fret. Very pretty chord. This one's got a bit of a stretch to get that F sharp there with the pinky, but it's worth it. It's very cool voicing of the G major 7th chord. We've got one voicing left. We're going to go up to our F sharp. That's the 7th note of the scale. We're going to make a voicing off of this one. This is the F sharp on the low E string. It's on the 14th fret. On the D string, we've got a D at the 12th. G, we got a G at the 12th. And on the B string, we have a B at the 12th. So we just play. Super easy. Okay, there's all those 4 voicings. Very nice. Okay, now that's 4 G major 7th chords across the neck of the guitar. We built them ourselves. They all have a distinct sound because of the way the 4 notes are arranged. Now let's try the same game that we're playing with the G minor 7th chord. The G minor 7th chord uses a flat 3 and a flat 7th. So if we start off with our notes from the G major 7th chord and make some adjustments, we can easily have a minor 7th chord, no time at all. The G note stays the same. The B is lowered to 1 fret to B flat. The D stays the same. And then the F sharp is lowered also to an F. So we have G, B flat, D, and F. And that gives us the notes to the G minor 7th chord. Let's plug these into our game. Let's try this building from the root. So we've got the G on the low E string. It's on the 3rd fret. On the D string, we have F on the 3rd fret. On the G string, we have B flat on the 3rd fret. And then on the B string, we have D on the 3rd fret. Very cool. All of our notes are at the 3rd fret. That's a super easy voicing of the G minor 7th chord. Let's try building it from the flat 3rd now. So the flat 3rd is B flat, and it's on the 6th fret of the low E string. On the D string, we have a G, the 5th fret. On the G string, we have D at the 7th fret. And on the B string, we have F on the 6th fret. First one, second one. Pretty nice. Move on to the fifth. So the fifth note is a D. It's on the low E string on the 10th fret. On the D string, we have B flat on the 8th fret. On the G string, we have F at the 10th fret. And on the B string, we have G at the 8th fret. There's all 4 of our notes. And our last one we're going to do with the minor 7th, building from the flat 7th. That's an F note. It's up on the 13th fret. On the D string, we have D. The G string at the 12th fret. On the G string, we have G on the 12th fret. And on the B string, we have a B flat on the 11th fret. So it looks like this. So we've got. There they are. There's all 4 of those voicings. Okay, that's our minor 7th chords. Let's try this game one last time for the G7th chord, the G dominant 7th voicings. For a G7, we have the G, the B, and the D from the major scale. But that F sharp, it has to come down one. It has to become an F. So G, B, D, F, those are the notes that we need. Let's try building this one from the root. So we've got G on the low E string. It's on the 3rd fret. On the D string, we have F on the 3rd fret. On the G string, we have B on the 4th fret. And then on the B string, we have D on the 3rd fret. Or sounds familiar, very bluesy. Let's build from the 3rd now. So we got the B on the low E string, it's the 7th fret. On the D string, we have G at the 5th. On the G string, we have the D on the 7th fret. And on the B string, we have F on the 6th fret. Nice. Okay, let's build from the 5th of the scale now. That's the D. The D on the low E string is up at the 10th fret. And then on the D string, we have a B. On the 9th fret, on the G string, we have F on the 10th fret. And then on the B string, we have a G on the 8th fret. So that gives us our D, B, F, and G, all of our notes. Let's see here. So we had. Oh. I got it. Took me a second there. Okay. And the very last one we're going to do today is building from the flat 7th. That's the F right here for our dominant 7th chords. We have an F on the low E string. That's at the 13th fret. On the D string, we have a D at the 12th fret. G string, we have G at the 12th fret. And the B string, B at the 12th fret. Straight across, barred across. 4 different dominant 7th chords. If you're listening in the car or you're at the gym, I'm just interested in you understanding the process. And that is knowing the notes you need in the chord and having an easy way to find them wherever your hand is on the neck of the guitar. At first, it's going to be a lot of thinking, but just keep trying. It gets a lot easier over time, and the benefits of being able to have several different ways to play the same chord are incredible. Let's see here. Let's switch back. So if you'd like chord charts to all of these chords I just played, just check the show notes page out. It's at playguitarpodcast.com/039. So let's take it to the next level. Where do I go from here? This is great. Well, if I needed a chord that's different, that's really high, or if I needed a 7th chord down low or on the low strings, well, we can take this process and use different sets of strings. Try playing our game on the top 4 strings. In fact, once you understand what we did here today, it's super easy to just move the note that was on the low E string and change it to the high E string, and all of a sudden you have an instant new top 4 string voicings like this. So if this is my G minor 7th chord, I could take this G, move it up here. Now I've got a top 4 voicing right there. But you could try the bottom 4 strings, the middle 4 strings, or something like we did today, starting on the A string instead. You can also try to get different chords for this game we're playing by altering notes, changing the 5th by raising it or lowering it, giving different sounds to your chords, or just leaving the root out all together, or the fifth out all together, and put some extensions in, like the ninth. So this has been a lot of fun for me to put together for you today. It's one of those things where you can take a little bit of the music theory we've learned and turn it into big practical results that will affect your playing and give you value for a long time. Even if the style of music played doesn't exactly match these chords that I was playing, the idea that if you know what notes you need and you have a way to arrange them quickly without being distracted by all the doubles and everything over your guitar, you can get great sounding results, and it's extremely valuable. So I usually end with a question, not today. I'm leaving you with a challenge. Try to spend some time with one of these chords. Just write down the notes, choose your string set, see if you can find 4 different voicings for your chords, and let us know how you did in the show notes at playguitarpodcast.com/039. This is listener feedback. This is where if you have a comment or a question I can help you with, I will try my best to help you. To get in touch, you can always email me at feedback@playguitarpodcast.com. You can tweet at me at playguitarpodcast or PDCST. You can use the comments on the show notes page or use the contact form on the site. Got a really great Apple Podcast review or iTunes review from Jim from Boulder. And he said, Lee, thanks for the great content. I just stumbled across your podcast and I love them. Your layback manner and unfettered enthusiasm are infectious. That's a lot of big words. I'm working my way through your library. Please keep up the good work. Thank you, Jim. I sure appreciate that. Made my whole day. Thank you so much for that review. I also got a tweet from Clinton this week. Was, what's been your biggest struggle? I asked a question. What's been your biggest struggle with music theory? And he said it was applying sight reading to a fretboard. It's a lot more evident on a keyboard, which is true. Everything's laid out better on a keyboard. The guitar has lots of doubles. You take this high E, for example. There's a lot of different ways to play that same exact note. You could play it at the 5th fret of the B string, at the 9th fret of the G string, at the 14th fret of the D string. You could play it at the 19th fret of the A string. Which one do you use? It's hard to know. So what I end up doing is we'll just take one of the patterns when I start students on sight reading and just use that over and over again until we get used to it. And once it's second nature, then we move on to another one of the patterns. So we take a lot of the guesswork out. Anyway, thank you so much for that tweet. Hope I helped you with that. I had a Facebook review from Kevin. And he said, incredibly valuable content for any guitar player, very pleasant host, and great choice of subjects, a must listen. And thank you, Kevin. That was awesome. I appreciate it. I really appreciate taking the time to leave that great review. Okay. And let's see here. I had a lot of emails today, and let's see. I had some from Kev and Eric and Eli, and we've got all those question and answers, and they all said very nice things. So thank you for those emails. We're talking about the Facebook group. We have new members: Rusty S, Brandon E, Carol H, Steve D, Eli A, David M, and John T B. Thank you for joining our Facebook group, and you too can join it. You can go over to playguitargroup.com. That'll take you right to the Facebook group. Sign up, answer a few questions, and come right on in. We had some great topics today. We talked about practice spaces, just like the podcast last week, and had a few folks showing their practice spaces, and that was great. Eli and Chris, thank you. Had some videos from Chris. He's working on Final Countdown solo and doing a great job working his way through it. And Howard set up his camera at an open mic and showed us jamming at an open mic night. So that was awesome, Howard. And lots of other videos people were sharing. There was a Bluegrass Thunderstruck. Let's see, some Santana, just a whole bunch of fun stuff on the group. I also did our live Q&A. I do it every Sunday at 5 Eastern Daylight Time at this point, 5 p.m. on Sundays. And we had a great time. Answered a whole bunch of questions. and got to hang out for a while. So if that's something that you're into, join up and you can see me every Sunday at 5 p.m. Okay, that's a wrap. Thank you for joining me today for the Play Guitar Podcast. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcast player. Also, I really appreciate it if you could leave a review for the show. If you're interested in online lessons, come on over to playguitaracademy.com and join my early adopter list to get news on the opening of the site and an early adopter discount. Also, follow me on all of my different social media pages. Links to them are at playguitarpodcast.com. Thank you again, and I'll see you in episode 40.